So that's the announcements. So we're in our theme, we're coming towards the end of our theme, current theme, which is sex, drugs and sausage rolls. So we've done a kind of contemporary take on the traditional 5 precepts on ethics. So we've had full talks on each of the precepts, and next week is our final evening of that theme where we will do a ritual together, we'll do a puja together. So tonight we've got 5 people from the Sangha. They'll be giving a short personal talk each, one on each of the precepts. So we've got Mahaprasara will be talking about the first precept of loving kindness. Then Erica will be talking about generosity. And then we have Pranya Shri, who will be talking about stillness, simplicity, and contentment. And then we have the hero of the night, Karmajit, who stood in at like the tiniest, shortest notice for another Sangha member who was taken ill. So I asked Karmajit, can you stand in really short notice? And he went, yep. So he's our hero, truthful speech. And then we round off with Ian, who's going to talk about awareness, mindfulness. Okay, so first of all, Mahaprasara.
First precept in the positive form, with deeds of loving kindness, I purify my body. That's a pretty big subject, and I've got 6 minutes. So I'm just picking out one small piece of my practice, something that was a challenge, which is now a delight. First, a bit of background. The Buddha's teachings move us individually in different ways. For me, the things that jump out, stop me in my tracks and become a call to action, are visual images, pujas and rejoicings, being in Sangha, occasional experiences in meditation, learning from those wiser and kinder, but also, and in particular, beautifully expressed verses, the Heart Sutra, the 4 reminders, the words from the Ratnaguna Sanjayagata on the staircase outside the Great Hall, and pithy wisdoms. And for this talk, I'm going to focus on one very pithy sentence in Sangharakshita's book, Living with Kindness. Be the first to say hello. Be the first to say hello. It's an act of kindness and generosity, welcoming the other person, whoever they are. In Nepal and parts of India, people say namaste. The spirit in me greets the spirit in you. In Ladakh, northern India, it's Jule, or Jule, 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 said with joy and exuberance. These are greetings that express far more than our reserved hello or good morning. They are expressions of well-wishing, expressions of absolute delight to meet another human being and greet them, friends or strangers, with joy and respect. Inside the mandala of the Sheffield Buddhist Centre, I think we're quite good at doing this. We have some wonderful exemplars like Amoga Vamsa. But outside, talking in dualities again, it needs a bit more resolve. I don't generally tend to think in terms of how to describe myself, but if pushed, I would say that I'm a very reserved extrovert. I was a well-behaved child in a quiet family. I didn't get told off much, but I remember one strong admonition from childhood, a shadow that has taken a long time to fade. Don't contradict, don't argue, don't interrupt. So being the first to say hello felt like intruding into someone's space. It did not feel like an act of generosity and friendliness. A busy tea room and Sangha night was certainly a challenge. Ordination is many things, and it may take time to sink in, and of course it brings new challenges. Time to contribute, time for transformation, time to get over yourself, time for many things. And for me, the time to start to be the first to say hello. And as with many other Buddhist practices, I found that I was being given permission to do the thing I really wanted to do. Sangharakshita said it's okay, be the first to say hello. Of course, not everybody wants to be said hello to. People may blank you, turn away. That has to be okay. We have no idea of someone else's experience at the time that we're trying to say hello to them or at any other time. We simply can't have someone else's experience. So how to respond when friendliness doesn't seem to be reciprocated? I thank my friend Manikaya for this observation. Maybe that person is a bodhisattva in disguise, waiting there to strengthen my resolve. Looking for a moment outside of our tradition, Mother Teresa would say, do it anyway. I guess some of you may not recognize me in this aspect of my practice. There are situations where I can't get over the hurdle of my reserve. It is work in progress. And inevitably, Mara creeps in. Doubt. Is this simple friendliness or is it a valid Buddhist practice? To answer that, I'd say that if my practice includes trying to dissolve the false separation between me in here and the world out there, and to fully realize our interdependence, then I think reaching out with an open heart is another leaf on the tree of Buddhist wisdom. What Sangharakshita calls an imaginative identification with other human beings. I mentioned earlier that I was inspired by beautiful verses, and I'm going to let Sangharakshita have the final comment with these edited words from Why I Am a Buddhist. I believe that humanity is basically one. I believe that it is possible for any human being to communicate with any other human being, to feel for any other human being, to be friends with any other human being. This belief is part of my experience. It is part of my own life. It is part of me. He goes on to say, I cannot live without this belief, and I would rather die than give it up. Be the first to say hello.
Okay, so is the volume okay at the back? Okay. So, I'm here to talk about the second precept, generosity. And 6 minutes is not long, Mahaprasad is right. But I've decided to try to talk about two things. The first of these things is it's a little bit sad, a little bit upsetting. So I will say I apologise to anyone who, finds the subject matter a little bit difficult. I think it's important because it really highlights the importance of acting on a generous impulse when it arises. And hopefully the second thing is a bit more inspiring, a bit more positive. It's about where my practice is at now. I will share something about my relationship with generosity first. It has never been easy for me to be generous, and that's because I had some wrong views around what generosity is. I'd spend a lot of time comparing myself to other people, seeing how they were outwardly generous. People walk into a room, like the kitchen downstairs, and say, does anyone want a cup of tea? It's generous, it's a simple thing, but it's just something that I might not have thought to do. So I was comparing myself to that idea of generosity and how other people sort of seems to flow from them really naturally in that kind of way. I've had a lot of thoughts around it being, I'm not as generous as other people. I must not be very good at being generous. And, all these wrong views that are quite not helpful, really. So the first thing that I want to share with you is about an auntie of mine who, about 4.5 years ago it would be, we found out she had cancer. And, this was 2021, so it was COVID times, and we couldn't see many people, and especially not poorly people. So my first thought was, I can't go and see her, so maybe I'll buy her some flowers. It's a token gesture. But I hoped it would be one that, would let her know we were thinking of her, wishing her well, sending her love, and all those sorts of things. But unfortunately, all my sort of negative thoughts kind of popped in. Well, she doesn't even like flowers. She'll think you're stupid for doing that. How's that going to help anyway? And I let all those thoughts win, and I didn't send her any flowers. And then sadly later that year, she did pass away. Which is, it's really sad, and I missed out on an opportunity there to offer someone that little bit of generous support in that way. So more recently, I found out another of my aunties was quite ill, and of course this time I didn't hesitate. I sent her the flowers because I didn't want to miss out on another opportunity to act on a generous impulse. So a lesson there, I think, for us all. If we have the means, then let's act upon it. But as we've kind of talked about in this series of talks, not all generosity is material, like flowers. There are lots of other levels of generosity as well. So our Bhante says that the path begins with dana, with giving, because if we give, we can let go of our craving a little. We can let go of our self-clinging. This sounds to us like a very obvious, in a rational sense, it's quite an obvious thing to reflect on. But I think to really know it and to let it drop deeper, it requires some sort of insight. So it moves to like a really heartfelt longing to be generous, and it gets to a point where we can't deny it, we can't say no to it, because we know deep down somewhere that it's the thing we need to do. So I went on a solitary retreat recently, and I had this experience. If you've not been on a solitary retreat before, I would definitely recommend it, but be prepared for the unexpected, let's say. So I did have one of these sort of significant shifts in perspective around generosity while I was on this retreat. And it was around moving away from this sort of backwards looking perspective of myself, this view that I've always been like this, and this is how I am, and this is what I need to stop doing, and this is what I need to start doing in order to change myself. So it's quite a harsh view, I think. So I've kind of shifted that view from this sort of backwards facing, what do I need to do, to what is it I want to become? A lot more positive, a lot more forward looking. And I did ask myself that question on retreat, what do I want to become? And an answer did come back, and I will share it with you, even though I feel it sounds a bit cringy now. Maybe it's not, but just feel a little bit vulnerable to say it. So the answer that came back was, I want to become a free flow, a spontaneous positive energy that overflows into all I do and towards everyone I meet. And it's quite lofty, isn't it? But what could be more generous? What could be more generous than sort of just allowing the Dharma to flow through us and to Yeah, because as we've mentioned, the giving of the Dharma is the highest level of generosity. So, and I don't think that always has to be, teaching the Dharma directly. I think just our practice of the Dharma can be very generous to others. We can allow that practice of the Dharma, that however we do that, to flow through us and just sort of immerse the world around us in what we do in our practice. So letting our practice sort of shine through us, embodying the Dharma and just being that person in everyday life where we are, endeavouring to follow the precepts. So bringing its truth and its beauty to the world around us. This shift in perspective is, we've talked before on other talks, other people have mentioned this sort of the view of the vast sky and the tiny grains of sand. So I think this shift in perspective for me has allowed me to see this vast sky instead of being sort of buried in all of these tiny grains of sand. And I think, these grains of sand, of course, they're important, all these little things that we do every day and the choices that we make every day. But if you've not got the sense of that bigger perspective, you can get very much lost in the detail, which I think is what was happening for me. So for me now, generosity is about who do I want to become? How do I want to give that gift to the world? Thank you.
Okay. Oh, there's loads of people here. That's good. Can you hear me at the back? Great. Good. I'm Pranya Shri, and I've been asked to say some words about my most challenging precept, the third precept. So I'm quite a busy person generally. So this precept is about stillness, simplicity, and contentment. And on Saturday morning at our Women's Mitra Order event, which was great, we had a poem by Roger Keyes called Hokusai Says. And there's a line in the poem that says, "Contentment is life living through you." So contentment is life living through you. So I thought, what does that mean? Okay. So I suppose, so I was mulling it over the weekend. I suppose it means a vibrant connection with our lives as they are, not our lives as we want them to be, but as they actually are. And that means turning up for life, connecting, turning towards it even when it's hard or sad or painful, or maybe boring or humdrum. So I think this turning towards life, even when it's painful, that really matters for me. There's a deep acceptance of what is actually going on, rather than a turning away and wishing it was all different. And it's not that we can't wish for different conditions. It's not that we can't wish for difficult conditions to change, or even start to make changes for that to happen. Contentment is not complacency, but we do need to start where we are. So for me, I suppose this showed up when I was having a particularly difficult time in my own life. My ex-partner had been diagnosed with a degenerative neurological condition, and my daughter was having a really tough time at school. So everything was collapsing around me. Some people remember that time. I'm very supportive, thank you. But yeah, it was turning towards that. So I think I'd spent quite a bit of time in panic and turning away. And it was actually having enough support, enough resources to turn towards a situation that started a turning point, that started, there was sadness, there was a lot of pain, but there was also some joy and some just, oh, I'm living this life as it is at the moment, you know, it's a bit crap, but I am living this life, yeah. This poem that Hokusai says also says it matters that we care. It matters that you care, and it matters that you notice. And it seems to me that this is the stillness and simplicity aspect coming through. And it's the stillness and simplicity that can support our contentment. Sangha, yes, I've already alluded to the fact that I find this the most difficult precept to keep. Sangharakshita started her talk on this by reflecting on the fact that this is probably the one that we break most easily and most thoughtlessly. And I think it's because actually stillness, simplicity and contentment runs very counter to the culture that we're living in, which is about being busy and productive, and we can be praised for overbooking our diary, you know. It seemed to be a good thing. But stillness and simplicity are the things that provide the space for beauty and meaning to arise in our lives. I'm just going to read a quote from Bhante Sangharakshita. He says, as music is born of silence and derives its significance therefrom, and as a painting is born of empty space and derives its significance therefrom, so are our lives born of silence, stillness, and quietude of spirit. The deeper and more frequent are those moments of interior silence and stillness, the more rich in significance and the more truly meaningful will our lives be. It's the pauses which make beautiful the music of our lives, and it is the empty spaces which give richness and significance to them, and it's the stillness which makes them truly useful. So that really chimes with me. I think that's true. So just in terms of how I apply it to my life, recently, this year, I've been fortunate to have a 4-month sabbatical. Thank you. Just a bit longer. So I went to Spain in the spring to be on the team for the Women's Ordination Retreat, which was great. And then I came back and I had to go back to work, which I was kind of dreading, really. But actually, it's been pretty good. And I think part of the reason for that is I decided to put some time in the week that was dedicated to me doing nothing. And I'm very fortunate that I can work for part-time. So Monday mornings, I'm not booking my diary. So Monday mornings is for me. So yesterday morning, it was a beautiful September morning. I went out for a walk. It was lovely. And it does set me up for the week. And it just, that time where we can, I sort of call it just looking at my toes, really. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything useful. Bhante's really great about saying, actually, we don't need to be useful all the time. Yeah. One more thing. Bhante also says that living the simple life is a strenuous life. So this kind of trying to simplify our lives amidst the monstrous jungle growth of the complexities of modern living is a task calling for unremitting endeavour and inflexible resolve. So he's saying, it's not necessarily easy, especially when we've got everything coming at us saying, do this, do that, buy this, buy that, It's sometimes turning away from that and turning towards our own lives can be quite a challenge. Anyway, I think it's well worth trying.
Oh, hi everyone. My name's Kamajit. Okay, so with truthful communication, I purify my speech. So firstly, I think this is a true statement. So intuitively, there's something hidden in that I can recognize as true or value. Hence, I sort of notice it as being important. So there's three things in the statement, isn't there? There's truthful communication, there's purification, and there's speech. So I have an internal dialogue, like all of us. And internal and external speech is an action, in my view, and an action that has consequences to other people and myself. So I can think of lots of examples in my earlier life where I lied in relationships or cheated and it caused a lot of pain. And I sort of glossed over it as sort of probably by sort of self-justifying it to myself. And so I had this sort of internal dialogue of how I sort of justify how I behaved and sort of it's become a confession here. It's not a very Oprah thing. But anyway, so I'm not going to go into it actually because I've only got 6 minutes. So I can speak, yeah, anyway. So I guess the assumption here is that if I speak truthfully, there's positive consequences. And if I speak untruthfully, there's negative consequences. So truthful speech is less harmful and more generous. I would say it's more spontaneous and actually it simplifies things in your life. So I personally live a very internal life. I'm quite often surprised what actually gets breathed out. It's sort of like words condensing in cold air sort of thing. It's sort of like, it's kind of like, is that really reflecting this internal space or internal dialogue I'm having? Is it really what I think or is it really what I feel? So I think it does take courage to be seen and heard. And I often feel I need to make a really big effort to do it. I find it quite difficult quite often. So quite often I need to sort of apply some sort of, well, I actually thought about this a few years ago. I sort of applied sort of truth test to a situation. So I started to find myself ruminating about something or something I find discomforting. I sort of have this entire internal dialogue or story to explain or justify it. And then I sort of ask myself sort of questions. Is that really true? If it's really true, if I did blah, 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 and then is that thing really true? If I did that? And then actually I could go even lower. Is that even true? So sometimes I have to think about things and test it in my own head. Of course, everything is partially true. But what I'm really quite often forgetting about is the wider story of the situation. So, what am I adding to the situation to make it more difficult? Am I causing someone else suffering because I'm not being truthful or the way I'm behaving? Am I as blameless as I think I am? Maybe I am. But am I completely independent and have no part in it? Definitely not. And I think I sort of have this sort of, I still have it, it's a strong view that I'm sort of this independent person with my own story and everyone else has got their own stories, but my story is kind of separate, like a separate strand. But my story is interwoven, it's an interaction with other people. It's other people's stories are sort of woven together and I'm interacting with other people's stories and they're interacting with my story. And I'm not really this separate, independent person just living my life. So that has a sense of responsibility to it. So for me, the real question is when I'm sort of really trying to work out this situation, is this true? is what am I desiring here? What is my deepest desire in this situation? What am I craving? What am I resenting? Why am I resenting it? What do I really want in this situation? And am I trying to avoid some shame? Am I trying to escape? Or am I trying to seek validation? Or am I really trying to seek real connection with people? Am I trying to be open with people? Do I really want to be kind, or do I want to be cruel? Do I want to really take or give encouragement? Am I grasping or holding, or am I protecting and releasing things? So I guess this is the purification aspect of the precept. This whole thing of me slowly unraveling this internal dialogue and sort of testing it with some sort of sense of what feels right, intuitively right. And when I mean purification meaning having a less diluted life in a way, and having a more focused, directed life where I can actually, I guess, interact or give, actually, I think. So when I hear or listen to other people, it's about me feeling I'm trusted when I speak the truth, or when I try to be as truthful as I can, but also I can feel that I can trust other people. So it does open up things for me. So it's this trustworthiness and trusting. And truthful communication is, for me, is more than speech. It sort of extends to listening and witnessing others and witnessing myself. And for me, it opens up a way to really see another person's humanity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ian. And 3 weeks ago, I was sitting at my desk at work, doom scrolling on my phone, I think, probably when I should have been attending to some lab results. And an email pinged in from Paranita. And Paranita said, would I like to do a talk on one of the precepts? And I don't know if the concept of outside voice, inside voice applies to email replies, but if it does, my outside voice reply was, yeah, sure, love to do that. What would you like me to talk about? My inside voice was, yeah, I'll do anything except awareness. So sure enough, a week later, I got another email from Paranita saying, we'd like you to do awareness, please. So you're probably getting the idea that I'm a bit reluctant to sort of talk authentically about awareness because it's not my strong suit. But in this talk, what I want to do is give you an idea of some of the challenges. There's quite a lot of them that I have with awareness. But also, I want to talk about how I work with those challenges as well, that share some strategies that I've found are useful for me in terms of living with more awareness. So the biggest challenge for me is intoxication, but not intoxication with drugs or alcohol. It's the intoxication of being over busy in the guise of productivity. So if you were to ask my partner Andrew what I'm like, he might say that I'm not always the most mindful person. So I'm constantly losing my keys, my wallet, my glasses is a really big one, my baseball cap, that's another really big one. On one occasion, I actually lost my actual car. I don't know how. But I think this lack of mindfulness comes from having too much going on, having too much in my head, trying to hold on to too many things, prioritizing frenetic activity, complexity, dissatisfaction over stillness, simplicity, and contentment. I think I've always had that tendency. However, I think having a really busy, hectic work life as a doctor really contributes to this significantly. And in healthcare, it is almost seen as a badge of honor to be too busy. So my work days are really busy and full with clinical educational commitments. But the danger here for me, I think, is that busyness is undoubtedly the thief of awareness. And what I found is if I don't actively guard against it, the over-busy mindset can leak out into my life outside of work, tricking my subconscious mind into believing that I'm too busy to take time to rest, too busy to meditate, filling my time too much, saying yes to too many things, leaving insufficient space between my commitments, resulting in more stress and a lack of contentment, but also just an increased risk as well of not keeping the other precepts. So if I'm feeling stressed and overfull at work, that can lead me to speak sharply or unkindly to a patient or a colleague. If I'm sort of feeling too busy, then I just won't sort of make time for that stillness and simplicity that is so important. And some of the strategies that are the less helpful strategies that I use to deal with this feeling of busyness are around sort of overindulgence in carbs, channel surfing, doom scrolling on my phone, just sort of general torpor as a way of sort of trying to deal with this kind of sense of overbusy mind. So this area is a difficult area for me. But when I look back to what my life was like before Buddhism, before I started serious Buddhist practice, I think there was definitely more reactivity. I think there was much less awareness about how my behavior impacted on others. So I've been reflecting on what's made a difference for me. And there's 3 things that I wanted to share about that. So 3 ways that I feel my practice has helped me with my overbusyness and my lack of awareness. Firstly, a commitment to regular quiet time, not just sort of formal, longer meditation sits, but also sort of shorter, maybe a mini metta bhavana at my desk before a difficult meeting, spending time outside, a lunchtime walk outside, sitting in the garden with a cup of tea, just kind of listening to bird song, watching insects. I find that this is a really sort of soothing activity, just giving myself that space and a really sort of nervous system regulating activity as well. Secondly, reflecting on how my behavior might affect others in ways that I might not be aware of. So I have a trusted friend, Amius, who I can rely on to give me honest feedback about how I am, how I'm showing up, and allowing me to sort of be enough in the gap to receive that feedback mindfully rather than in that kind of habitual, really reactive way. And thirdly, and very practically this week, getting rid of Facebook and Instagram off my phone. So, hopefully less of a tendency to reach for my phone for distracting. So one more thing, I've discovered a new word recently, and that word is susurration. So susurration is a low, gently soft, rustling sound like the sound a breeze makes when it blows across your ears. And if you're a sailor, one of the ways that you can work out which direction the wind is coming from is to turn your head until the susurration is completely equal in both ears, completely balanced. And the direction you're facing at that point is the direction that the wind is coming from. And this really helps me to think about awareness. So turning into the hubbub and the mental chatter and aligning yourself to reach that point of balanced awareness. And anything I can do to reset that point of equilibrium feels like time well spent.